Mayor Pro Tem Scott Funk, excused absence. Councilmember Liz Silva,
Present.
Councilmember Lorraine Worthy,
Present.
Councilmember Maria Roscoe,
Present.
and Mayor Jose Rios.
Present. All right, moving on to the agenda here, we're gonna go to business of the public. Any member of the public who wishes to address the council may do so at this time. You'll be limited to 3 minutes on any subject not on the agenda. The council will listen to all communications, but will take no action. You sure? I'm positive.
Yeah, I want to show you my new sweater. Yeah,
Hey, very see you move out there, so.
Yeah.
Brother, we got
well,
you.
I'll say for, they call me cop hater. And I love the name, cop hater. You guys spent $12,000 for a drone. We caught you violating the Privacy Act. I called Seaside and told them, hey, you're broadcasting the drone. Channel 8 dropped the story and just showed the police officer flying the drone in the park and not no more at nighttime flying, showing houses and addresses. And then also, waste of money. And I knew, I hate to say it, self-serving, I told you so. Knowing these officers that are in command, I knew they were gonna break the rules. One of the rules that he's playing with is our safety, flying at night. Because Gonzales is windy. And there is up to 30 miles an hour gust that the drones are not able to fly in. The date of New Year's, you can Google it with the wind authority, it was predicted up to 30-mile winds, gusty winds, up. The west side was down here. They were flying that drone that night when it was high winds. So that's another safety violation, that you can't fly the drone when it's windy. And I told that to Seaside too, and I tell them, according to Gonzales, we were 30-mile-an-hour gusts. How much was it by the ocean? And you're flying 4 drones? Yeah, and you know, I hate to say it, but I was right. They did violate it, and I'm surprised they did it in 6 months. And now with this vest, I'm gonna put lights on my bike and I'm gonna drive around looking for it. And when I catch it flying, I'm gonna ask the chief tomorrow if he gives me a log when he flew those drones, so I can compare it with the wind. And if they're flying it above 22 miles an hour, then I'm gonna report them to the FCC, federal, whatever aviation, report them that they're flying it in a unsafe manner. And hopefully the chief will be cooperative with me and give me the log of dates and the time they flew their drones in the last 6 months. So I can make sure that they're not violating our safety, because gusts will hit it and it will fall down and hit us. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the council? Yes, you know, unwatch your tables or stuff. Do you have anyone via Zoom?
No comments via Zoom.
Mary, comments?
No comments via email.
I'm going to close that section of the agenda and move on to the regular agenda. Consider approval of resolution number 2024-36, a resolution of the city council of the city of Gonzales adopting an operating budget for the city for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, and providing for the
Mayor, we hop over consent item 3 and 4.
oh, I apologize, I'm sorry. All right, have you all had a chance to review the consent items? If so, I will entertain a motion for approval or disapproval or any open discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve our consent agenda as stated.
Motion
Second.
second. Okay, I'll go ahead and call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Now, moving on to the regular agenda. Thank you, Mike, for pointing that out. Today's not a great exciting day, but we're making the best of it. So, consider approval and resolution of number 2024-36, a resolution of the city council of the city of Gonzales adopting operating budget for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, and providing for the appropriations and expenditures of all sums set forth therein. And two, resolution number SA 2024-02, the resolution of the city council of the city of Gonzales acting as the successor agency for the Gonzales Redevelopment Agency, providing, approving and adopting successor agency budget for the period between July 1, 2024 and June 30th, 2025. Staff report.
Stella?
Didn't even turn mine on.
Yeah, I'll use this one. That one's the faulty one. Okay. Just waiting for the slideshow to, there we go. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. So Honorable Mayor, council members, it is my pleasure to present to you along with Mike Howard, our Finance Director, the 24-25 budget. Next slide, please. So our budget is status quo and it is balanced. Our operating budget is $54,822,583 and really the operating budget is that high because of our community center and our industrial wastewater treatment plant that is incorporated in that total sum. Our operating budget is $7,354,639 and that's excluding transfers. Next slide, please. So as you know, our sales tax revenues are softening a bit. So we have to be a little bit conservative with our budget. The property taxes will also continue to increase modestly as sales continue to slow and prices continue to decline. Expenses are increasing faster than our revenues are coming in. And over the long term, so we have to be cautious of that. Increasing staffing costs and capital costs continue to rise. And again, you know, we have to be careful with that as well. And our general fund capital needs are significant and we have limited resources coming in. So next slide, please. The fiscal year 24-25 budget is focused on your priorities, the community center that is well on its way, the industrial wastewater treatment plant that we are just received the agreement and are moving that forward. Our housing, we know desperately that is a huge desire in the community. And so that is one of the priorities. And then our general plan housing element that we are finalizing or replying to comments from the state, hoping to finalize that soon. And then the conversion to our financial software system that is also in process. So those are what the main priorities that the budget reflects. Next slide. So as you are aware, the future budget, you know, has risks, but there are also opportunities. Our revenues are not keeping in pace with expenditures. Everything continues to go up and we have to find additional funding sources to help us offset some of those costs. The CalPERS liability continues to increase, unfortunately. The Vistalicio project is an opportunity that we can retrieve some impact funds if that project gets on its way. And then the South Tower leases that you all are well aware of as well brought a little bit of opportunity to our budget. And then, of course, we all know that we have limited staff to support all of these main projects. Next slide. The organizational chart has not changed. This is the last one that you approved. And again, we do have short amount of staff to carry all these projects, and that's something that I am cautious of, and I know you all are very aware as well. So I just want to make sure that this continues to be a focus, that we have to ensure that these big projects are carried forth and are advanced with, even though we have limited staffing. Next slide, please. Mike's going to go much more in detail into our funds and where our funding lies, and we'll entertain any questions at the end if you have any.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members. So we're going to go through our different operating funds, just so that we know kind of what the status of each one of our funds are. So we're going to start with the general fund. This is the one that we pay the most attention to. Looks like sound just went. Oh, okay. So our general fund is made up of two funds right now. One is, it's Fund 100, the general fund. And then we created another fund, which this is actually a requirement with our USDA loan, that we have a separate fund and sources so that we maintain all of the expenditures for the community center, and all of the donations and the grant funds and the transfers of any funds out of the, the general fund has committed. At the end of the project, ideally, that will be zero. Maybe an excess that we can move right back into Fund 100. Next slide. So these are the ongoing challenges. This is going to be we're going to repeat a few themes here because there's a couple of things that before you leave the chamber today, you're going to make sure that you understand exactly where we are. Our revenues are not keeping up with everyday expenses. Our expenses are over the long term, our expenses are going up higher than what our revenues are. The city does have significant deferred maintenance for its infrastructure. Specifically speaking, we're speaking general fund now. This is repairs to the council chamber, the police department, city hall, the courtyard, the recreation facilities, those things that the general fund is, the pool, the whole pools complex. The general fund is responsible for maintaining those assets, and we're not setting aside money to maintain those assets. Staffing limitations. We have a very small staff. We're very limited in things that we can do. The sunset of Measure X in 2044. I know that sounds like a really long ways away, but it's going to sunset. And this has become a critical part of our budget. It represents 22% of our general fund. If we lost 22% of our general fund revenue, that would devastate what we could accomplish in for services out of City Hall. Next slide. The general fund is presented to you as balanced. We want you to know that there were sacrifices that were done in this budget. All departments took a 10% reduction across the board, with the exception of salaries and benefits, insurance costs, and 911 costs. Essentially, the costs that we have no control over, those were budgeted as we're supposed to, but the other funds or the other line items that within our budget, we started this budget with 10% reductions. And that's what it took to balance this budget. It is going to be necessary for us to secure additional revenue sources for the future. Next slide. So this is just a picture. Sometimes a picture is better than just words on a page of where our revenues are coming from. Now, what I want to point out is between property taxes all the way through VLF. VLF is the vehicle license fee, which comes with our property taxes. But if we took all of those together, that represents 59% of our entire budget. It's significant. So when we have an economic downturn, those are the things that are going to be affected first, is our property taxes, sales taxes, and Carmen has already mentioned our sales taxes already begun to soften and are projected to soften for the next 2 fiscal years. Okay, next slide. This is another slice of our general fund to show you where the expenditures are based on expenditure categories. Salaries and benefits represent 68% of the general fund budget. With services and supplies, the services and supplies is paying for the lights, paying for the water, just our regular operating costs. And then when the 2% represents the debt service payment for the pool renovation. Next slide. One more slice on, well, just a slice of how our money is spent. So all of that revenue that comes in, here's how it is spent. The majority of the budget goes to public safety, which is 61%. I want you to know that that is normal. That sounds high, but that is a normal percentage for all jurisdictions that have public safety in their budget. Because public safety is not allocated amongst other funds. They are charged 100% to the general fund. Whereas other departments, their time is spread over multiple funds based on the activities that they do. For example, some of like the ladies up front, part of their time is charged to the general fund, but a large part of it is charged to the utility funds because they're taking utility payments all day long. Okay, next slide. So the general fund, as of now, has two debt service instruments. First is the 2016 pool renovation. The current balance on that loan is just around $800,000, and we have 6 years left to pay on that note. We closed just recently on the 2024 lease revenue bond. This is essentially think of it as the construction loan that will be converted into the USDA loan. That's a $9.8 million loan, and those debt service payments will start in 2 years. We've already prepaid the interest on the loan, and it's in escrow, but so when all that conversion happens. But now the general fund will have two debt service instruments. And the challenge we will have going forward is we will have a debt ratio that we will need to maintain for the covenant, to maintain the covenants of these loans. And so we'll get more information and so forth on how those calculate once this loan is converted and we have the USDA loan. But it will most likely be in the form of reserves that we will have to have so much general fund reserve dedicated for future debt service payments so that the government knows that we can pay back the debt. Currently, Measure K is paying for the pool loan, and that's about $130,000 a year. Next slide. So let's talk about Measure K. Internally, we still call it Measure K, but just so the council knows, this entire measure got converted to Measure X, but internally we split it as Measure K and Measure X. So Measure K was the original sales tax measure. It was 0.5%. And so for this year, our projection is $812,000. And I'll get to another point in a minute. And again, I want to make sure that everybody knows you're going to get this in front of you until we do something about it. This is going to expire. It expires in 2044. But let me tell you, I worked with other jurisdictions and they thought, oh, that's years away. And now they're up upon their expiration and we're scrambling to, when do we get this on the ballot to get it extended? Okay, so at some point at the right time, we need to figure out how to extend that. Next slide. These are the Measure K allocations. I'm not going to go through them one by one. The council approved these at our last meeting. The recreation activities make up about 45% of all Measure K distributions. So the allocations are funding that. Now, there is a discrepancy, and I just want to call it out. We allocated $800,000, but I just said that the measure we're expecting to get 812. The reason that we did that is we were trying to be conservative, because if we allocated 812 while we have softening revenues and we got less, where do we take it from? So we want to be on the conservative side and only allocate the 800,000. If by the time we get to third quarter and it looks like we will get that, then we can re-engage the Measure K committee and commit additional funds. Okay. The next slide. Here's now a pie chart of kind of so that you can see how that gets distributed to the various activities. Again, if you added up all of the recreation type services, it represents 48% of the budget. The rest of the budget going to the funding of the fire positions, the Salinas Valley Promise, the city beautification, and the pool debt. Okay. Next slide. So now Measure X. This was the new ½ cent measure. Currently, the Measure X funds, we're expected to bring in $812,000. Those funds are committed to the community center for construction. The city does have a required match according to our USDA loan, and so we need to make sure that we match that. We believe we have more than sufficient funds to satisfy that requirement set forth by the USDA, so we're not concerned there. At the time of the completion of the community center, the Measure X funds have been committed to the debt service payment of that $9 million loan. So we've already mortgaged the farm, so to speak. Okay. That kind of concludes the general fund. So next slide. So the city has 4 enterprise funds. An enterprise fund is a fund, it's a standalone fund, it's a business unit, and is paid for by the ratepayers. It is completely paid for by the ratepayers. You know, we just completed a rate survey. We have new rates. The object of the rates that are set forth are that they are to cover the operating costs plus an amount for future replacements of the assets. So that's why we have depreciation in an enterprise fund that we don't normally have. So just Reader's Digest or the simplified version is whatever our depreciation is what we should be setting aside in our reserves to maintain or replace assets in the future. So the funds, you know them well. It's our water, sewer, garbage, solar, and the Gonzales Electric Authority, which is currently inactive. So there is no activity, there is no budget for that fund in fiscal year 24-25. Next slide. So let's start with the water fund. So our water fund for the next fiscal year is projected to bring in $2.3 million with expenditures of $2.4 million. We have no large capital projects. We have maintenance projects budgeted, but nothing that we would call a capital project in the finance world. So if we eliminated the $240,000 of depreciation, which is a non-cash item, it's a non-operating item, then the fund is operating with a surplus of $161,000. Okay. We'd probably want it to be a little bit, it's not quite covering the depreciation, but at least it's operating in the positive. Next slide. Some good news. The water fund now has no debt. The debt instrument that was there was paid off in this fiscal year in December of this year. The council approved the payoff of that loan. Part of that was to move along quickly the industrial wastewater loan that we were going for. Okay. Next slide. So here's a picture of how the water fund sets up. Salaries and benefits represent about 68%, supplies and services 22%, and then depreciation 10%. In a couple of years, this is going to change, and we are going to have, I'm sorry, that's going to be the next fund. The sewer fund will have a sizable debt service payment. This one hopefully will not have any debt. Okay, next slide. So onto the sewer fund. The current budget is roughly $2 million worth of revenue will come in, with expenditures at 1.7 million. 165,000 of that is depreciation. So with excluding depreciation, we have a surplus of $541,000. We're more than covering our depreciation. But there will be in the future capital coming out of here as we start doing, right now, for this budget, we'll be using the impact fee funds as well as the loan proceeds to move forward with the project. Okay, next slide. So here's just a pie chart of what this looks like today. So salaries and benefits, again, about 60%. We saw in the water fund, it was 68%. So we're right in line there with depreciation at 10%. So the two funds are operating almost identical. But when we get in a couple years, we're going to see a significant debt service payment in this fund that we'll have to cover. But the rate study that the council has adopted takes into account when that loan goes into place and the rates are set to cover that debt service payment. So we have that covered into the future. Next slide. This is our garbage fund. This one is really kind of, there are no assets. There is no depreciation. It's really a franchise fee fund. We collect about $1.5 million or just under 1.6 million. And with expenditures and transfers, it's 1.5 million. This fund is not intended to make money that we would reserve. It's not intended to build reserves. It is intended, let me backtrack. It is intended to have a positive balance because our franchise fee is around 20% or more that should be coming to the city. Okay. The rates are set by Tri-Cities. They're adopted by the council, even though you don't have any choice but to adopt them. Because if there's a 218 or anything, that all happens with the agency. It doesn't happen at the local level. Okay. Next slide. So this is what our garbage fund looks like. It's about 63% salaries and benefits, services and supplies, and then that 11% right there represents the transfer to the general. I'm sorry, the 11% is the service and supplies. Our transfers is around the 20% coming to the general fund. Okay, so we transfer on an annual basis, whatever the residual is on this fund transfers over to the general fund, and we actually account for it in the general fund as income. Okay. The solar fund, next slide. The solar fund has expenditures of about 500,000 with 550,000 of expenses. Our debt service payments are about $51,000. The other is just other administrative costs for the loans, as well as an administrative transfer to the general fund. And so it's projected to keep its fund balance about zero. Okay. Right now, it's just covering debt service payment is really what's happening with that fund. Which one? No, the debt service payments are 451,000. The difference between them is, is other, yeah. So the solar fund does have two debt instruments in it. We call them Solar Lease 1 and Solar Lease 2. They're 2 different years for 2 different projects. They're going to pay off pretty quick. The Solar Lease 1 will pay off in 25-26. So we just have 2 fiscal years left. That balance is just about $600,000. We have a little bit longer on the second solar lease, and there's about $900,000 left on that debt service payment. Once we finish those debt service payments, then we will figure out, these were originally set up just to capture enough money to pay off the debt service. Now we'll figure out a franchise fee cost to the entities that are using the electricity for it to come in, and then the fund should generate a little bit of money. It needs to, because the solar panels need to be maintained. Okay. The next slide. Okay, so this is just a graph, a picture of the what's happening there. We have just very little depreciation. It's about $50,000, I think is the number. It's $40,000 or $50,000 is the depreciation. That's the depreciation on the solar panels themselves. The supplies and services are the cost of maintaining, and because we have to maintain these service panels. And then there's the debt service payment, which is about 80% of the total expenditures. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the electrical authority is on hold. There is no budget. There is nothing projected, no projects. And so the entire fund is on hold. So the next grouping of funds that we have in our budget are called special revenue funds. Special revenue funds are funds or funds that are set up by the city where we receive monies, but they are specifically for a specific purpose. For example, we receive COPS grant money. That can only be spent on public safety. So we keep that in a separate fund. We receive funds just for public safety. If we receive a CDBG grant, that can only be spent on the items that the grant was intended for. And so we have to account for them in separate funds. They can't be used, like, let's say we get we have a LEAP grant or a REAP grant for our general planned and housing elements. We can't use that to pay for public safety. It can only be used for the items that it was intended for. So we have 5 different categories of special revenue funds. We have for streets and maintenance, community development, public safety, the assessment districts are special revenue funds, and so are impact fee funds, because and the one that comes with the tightest strings is the impact fees. Those come with the tightest strings of pretty much all of them. So let's talk about our streets and transportation special revenue funds. Those account for 3 different funds. Our gas tax SB1, and Measure X TAMSI, not to be confused with our Measure X. This is the Measure X that TAMSI. It is a sales tax measure, but let's go back up to gas tax. Gas tax, this is the tax you pay at the pump every time you pump your gas. You pay a cents per gallon to the state of California. Those taxes then get distributed based on population. So we can pump up our population, we will actually start getting a bigger piece of the pie. SB1, so those funds can only be used for street maintenance and street construction. SB1 was a maintenance and rehabilitation measure. This one will expire in, I think it's 5 or 6 years. It will come to its expiration unless the state and thus the governor at the time extends it. This is to be used for additional maintenance or rehabilitation of roads. The Measure X money that comes to us through TAMSI has the least amount of strings on it, used for streets only. However, all of our funds are committed to the paying off of the Alta project. If you remember, if you're on council at the time, when the Alta project was presented to the council, we borrowed money from TAMSI in order to complete that project, and the loan payments are all of the proceeds that we receive on an annual basis goes towards the payment of that loan. At the end of 2023, the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023, we owed about $1.2 million with about 3.5 more years to pay off. So with sales tax softening, that could extend the number of years. When sales tax goes back up, that could decrease the number of years. And we don't know what that is until the end of the year. TAMSI sends us an accounting and says, here's what we applied to your loan. So the next special revenue fund is community development. These consist of home and CDBG program revenue. These are loan payments that we issued to either businesses or homeowners. The largest amount of the home loans that we have was for Cipriani when that development was put in. So those all have various loans that were given out, and then we have various business loans. When those folks make payments, that goes into program income funds. We then have other CDBG grants for specific projects. And then we do have the LEAP and REAP grants that were used for the general plan or the housing plan. Next slide. So for public safety, we have two funds. We have the supplemental law enforcement, which is the Proposition 172. These funds can be used only for public safety. And then, so we account for all of these funds. I know it sounds kind of goofy, but we have to be able to prove that the funds came in. We then transfer them to Fund 210, which is the fund that we pay for our SROs. And so we can clearly show that the funds were paid 100% for public safety. Next slide. The next is our assessment districts. You're well aware of the assessment districts that we have. And you know that we've got some things coming before you. Actually, the adoption of all of the rates will be at the July meeting. I just want to point out that for California Breeze, the parks assessment portion of that district is not paying its way, so to speak. At the beginning of this fiscal year, we project that its fund balance will be negative, about $240,000. And if all continues as planned throughout the rest of the year with no changes, it could balloon up to $300,000 that they would be in the red. So some decisions will need to be made. We do have a 218 process that is underway. If for some reason, well, I guess we can have that discussion once we have the results of that. All other, now interesting that the maintenance, the street maintenance does have a fund balance, although it is not high enough to do any repairs on the California Breeze side. Canyon Creek, Cipriani, and the Industrial Park have healthy balances, and we are able to do projects out of those as needed. The assessments are used for maintaining the parks or just regular maintenance of the streets and lighting. And rates are adopted by council on an annual basis. The Public Works Department contracts with Harris to do the engineers reports. And then, so we've got a third party that calculates what our rates should be based on the budgets that we're going to, our operating budgets, as well as if we're going to have any planned capital. Okay. Next slide. So the next one is our impact fees. I'm not going to go through a whole lot of this. I'm not going to read through all these are all of our impact fee funds. Impact fee funds are collected at the time that building permits are issued. And so they are deposited into the various funds. These expenditures can only be used for capacity increasing projects. Like if we were building a new fire station, or if we were building something new, or if we were adding on to City Hall, then there are certain funds that we can use. They cannot be used for the maintenance or replacement of assets. It can only be used for the increased capacity because that's essentially what the fees are for. The builder is paying as a result for their development as the effect of the increase that they're going to have on the community for services. So next slide. So the impact fees actually provide a glimpse of growth or non-growth into the future. If the impact fees are increasing by a lot, then we have a lot going on inside the city. If they're staying stagnant and not increasing, then we don't have a lot going on in the city because we only collect them at the time that we issue building permits. All of the expenses within an impact fee, for the most part, result as a capital expenditure. There are very rare instances or a couple of exceptions to that, and that's if we were doing a master plan for something, we can use impact fee funds for those. Okay, next slide. So our last group of funds is the successor agency. The successor agency is the former RDA or redevelopment agency. In 2011, the governor moved to dissolve redevelopment agencies, and in February of 2012 was the official date that redevelopment agencies were to begin winding down. For the city of Gonzales, we have not filed our last and final ROPS. We have extreme pressure from the Oversight Board as well as the Department of Finance to file our last and final ROPS, mainly because we have already disposed of all of our assets. And the only thing that we have left are debt service payments. And so they're asking, why do you still need administrative money? The law, the statute currently allows us to collect actually up to $250,000 annually. We are now receiving $120,000. Once we file a last and final ROPS, or we get pushed into that $120,000 has to come back into other operating budgets. So something else to be aware of that is on the horizon. And I don't know how many more years I can actually, with a straight face, tell the Department of Finance that we need that money. But by statute, we are allowed to do it. So they know that this is a loophole that a governor's budget could close it at any time. Okay. We're not the only agency that's collecting administrative fees. So other than that, the fund is on autopilot. It's not our money. We're a private, the fund is essentially a private purpose trust. The city of Gonzales acts as a trustee for the state of California to make those debt service payments. At the conclusion of our debt service payments, the RDA will cease to exist and will be completely gone. So next slide. So the successor agency does have 2 outstanding debts, so it's going to be around for a little bit longer. The first one in the 2015 tax allocation bond, or tax allocation refunding bond, TARB is what we call it, has a current balance of $4.4 million, and the 2016 TARB still is owed $3.4 million. None of the money to make these bond payments comes from the general fund. They all come from the property tax revenue that is generated from the former redevelopment agency. So it used to be, before the redevelopment agencies were dissolved or done away with, the city would receive all of the money from the tax increment for the RDA area. 20% of it would be set aside for low-income housing, and then the other 80% would be used by the city to do either go out and buy bonds, to do large projects, or to do rehabilitation. For example, the very, very last thing that was done before the dissolution of the RDAs was the construction of the police department, and that was done with RDA money. Okay, but now cities don't have that revenue stream to do these projects or to do low-income housing projects because the state has taken it away. Okay. So next slide. So future items that we need to think about, as it's already been mentioned, but we need to keep repeating it. PERS costs are going up, and they're going up for all jurisdictions. The city's deferred maintenance for the city's general fund infrastructure, those are just mounting. The more that we defer the maintenance on them, and the more that we put Band-Aids on them, we stress out the Public Works Department, and especially when we have a project and we need to figure out where we're going to get the money to do it. We do have significant projects with limited staff. So the next slide. So a little bit of good news on the PERS side is for the unfunded liability, the city is now on the downward slope. The way the unfunded liability started is it's a bell shape, and we were way up at the top, and then it slows down at the back end. What I don't have on here, and in August, and I will update this and we'll come back to you with some kind of a report for PERS, is that we got a notice probably about 4 months ago that our PERS costs will go up quite a bit. And the reason for that is the state of California, PERS, that PERS agency, has an internal guaranteed rate of return of 7%. If the fund doesn't make 7% on its earnings during the year, the jurisdictions make up the difference. And so they push it down to all local jurisdictions to make up the difference. And so what it's called is layers. So every year that we don't meet the internal rate of return, a new layer of unfunded liability mounts underneath there. So the actuarial reports will be issued in August with the new amount of what the projections are going to be. And I'll come back to council just to show what that's going to look like with these new layers coming in. Okay. Next slide. So this is a projection of our fund balance. So you will see that we have this increase, looks all nice and well, that we've been tracking revenues and expenditures right online, or everything going out. Now we have this blip in 24, 25. What that amounts to is the sale of the cell tower leases. So we're expecting to at least net $1.2 million out of that transaction. The $1.2 million must go into reserves. We've made a commitment to the USDA that we would build reserves. And actually our commitment is a little bit higher. So we've got to figure out how we're going to make up the delta. But those funds need to go into reserves to show the USDA at the time that we complete the community center that we have adequate funds to make these debt service payments. And so we're accomplishing that by selling this asset. But next year, without anything else, that gap is going to go right back down to revenues and expenditures. Actually, today, if I exclude the sale of that property, our revenue and expenditures are match. We're not putting aside anything to reserves. Okay. And then next we'll have Carmen take over.
So as you know, we are going after every dollar that we can and working very hard to identify areas where we can cut back and reduce costs and make sure that we are going after all the cost recovery that we can. Additional revenue strategies also include the have sent sales tax measure. If the council desires to put that on the November ballot, that will come to you at the next July meeting. The parcel tax is also another potential opportunity to help fund fire service. And we'll be exploring that in the next, next fiscal year, so shortly in a month or two. The assessment district review, as you know, we're going to through the 218 process right now with the California Breeze area to see if they support a 218 an assessment or increase to their assessment to help us pay for maintenance of their park. And that's currently underway. And then potential fee for general plan updates. We have a few areas of the general plan, including the housing element that need to be updated and then go into implementation, as well as this, the justice element and others. And then review for fees for our cost of service. Again, we're looking at, are we recovering everything that we can based on the work we're doing. The highway billboard is also another potential revenue source that we have in the works currently. And then potential sale of any other assets. And you see here this cell tower lease, but looking at everything else that may be on the table. Next slide. And then this is what you have before you today. Consideration and adoption of the resolution. I won't go into all that because we'll go do that as you make your motions to adopt or move forward. But you also have to authorize the city manager and the finance director to realign the budget for fiscal year 23-24. Approve the positions allocated for 24-25. Approve the salary schedule and the city's classification plan. Affirm the City of Gonzales reserve fund balance for all funds, and then establish the proposition for general fund appropriations with the limitations for fiscal year 24-25. Next slide, please. And then items or future items on the horizon. Again, as mentioned, the balance is the budget is balanced, and we are happy to be able to present that to you this evening. The city is in a challenging position with softening revenues, but we are working to address that, with the strategies I previously mentioned. And the city will continue to look for other revenue streams, to help support our, infrastructure maintenance and to help offset operations and, other costs. The city should continue seeking sources for funds for capital growth projects to accommodate the needs of our community and through grant opportunities. And we, are busy exploring those options and submitting grants left and right. And then, of course, cost containment continues to be critical until new revenue sources can be secured. Next slide, please. And then on behalf of the staff, we express our gratitude for the continued support of the city council as we continue to strive to provide the excellent services while keeping our expenditures in line with our revenues. And although there are some challenging times ahead, we believe we can continue to overcome them with careful planning and exercising fiscal responsibility and doing everything we have to do to tighten our belts and make sure that we stay within our budgets. So that is all of the presentation that we have for you this evening. We'll go ahead and take any questions from the council at this point.
Okay, do you have any questions for staff before I open this up to the public? Liz?
First of all, I want to thank staff for all the details, especially Mike, for all the explanations you gave this evening. In reviewing all the material we received, of course, all I see is numbers and graphs and stuff. I made a few notes though, as because I was looking at it and it said previous year, so I'm thinking that that was last fiscal year. Then they had this year's stuff and then the projected stuff. So once I got that ironed out, had a couple of questions with regards on page 66 of the detail we received, where it has all the graphs for all the departments. Under the police department, there was other contractual services listed. And I didn't know what that meant.
The majority of that is the 911 fees that we pay. That's for the 911 and for the maintenance of the radio system. Okay,
thank you. Also in page 82, under parks, there was an explanation for salaries. And I didn't know we had anybody specifically assigned, or is that one of those things like you were mentioning that the people that work in the front office at City Hall, their salaries kind of go to the water fund or the utilities because they cover most of the
Okay,
utilities?
so specifically related to parks, these are public works employees that go and maintain the parks. So
Okay.
we allocate their time.
Their salary
Their
goes-
time, a part of their salary is the time spent on the parks versus working in the water system.
Okay,
We don't have dedicated employees that just do parks or just do what they're working on all the systems.
okay. Okay, okay, that makes some sense. Thank you. And then the final question I have, what do transfers out mean? That was listed on almost everyone.
Okay, so if you're specifically looking in the departments like on the recreation, you can see the transfer out, but it's in a negative record. It's an internal accounting mechanism to account for, those are to account for the measure one, what measure K is paying for in that fund. So it's reducing the expenditures and then we're showing the expense under the measure K categories.
Okay. Because I was like transfers out and one of them was a negative, I think, and most of them just showed as a
Right.
positive number and I just didn't know what it meant. It's like,
So-
but it showed up on a lot of different budgets.
Right. So another fund or another department that would show a transfer out that is not negative is the police department. And what that reflects is, if you recall in the presentation, and I know I was going really fast and I
Mhm.
apologize for
That's
that.
okay.
The public safety funds, the public safety fund, we call it Fund 150, where the COPS money, the Prop 172 comes in. Those funds transfer over to Fund 210 to pay for the SROs. If that revenue is projected to be short, the general fund has to make up the difference. And so that transfer represents a shortfall from those special revenue funds.
Okay. With regards, you mentioned CalPERS, there's going to be an increase. What what do you think is the best way to solve that? Is that going to be an increase in the percentage from the employees? Or is that something that the city would have to cover?
Well, with pension reform, well, number one, the employees are not allowed to pay any more than what is already their requirement. So
Okay.
whether 7% or 9% for public safety. The new employees that are coming in that are classified as PEPRA, those percentages are fixed and they're pretty much 50-50. Whatever the employee pays, the city pays. They pay an equal share going into their fund. They have a lower pension formula. It's not as rich as what we call a classic employee. I guess if I put it in a nice way, there needs to be changes at the state level. It's unreasonable. Wouldn't we all love to have a guaranteed rate of return of 7% on our investments?
Mm,
I mean,
yeah.
placing this artificial 7%, and when we don't meet it, pushing that burden down on the local jurisdictions is unreasonable. But that's the cost of the amount of employees or participants that are in the fund that will receive classic benefits, and they are a high benefit. So eventually that will overwork itself as that population bubble works its way through the system,
Mhm.
but it's not going to be for many years.
Okay, my final question is, you mentioned that the enterprise funds really don't have any employees per se, so maybe this question is related to the one I asked earlier. Under, enterprise funds, there were salaries and benefits listed. Is that kind of the same thing? If somebody from Public Works works at the water plant or the
Right.
water tank, then their salaries are, Under-
Time is allocated to for example, some of your stipends are allocated to the enterprise funds because you conduct business and approve projects for the enterprise funds. The city manager, the finance, the public works, we all work partly for enterprise funds or some of the other special revenue funds. And so the salaries for staff is allocated to the enterprise funds based on the amount of work that we believe they perform in those separate segments.
oh, okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Worthy.
Okay, mine is kind of directed toward the big picture, I think. The state of California is financially in a pretty big deficit right now. And yet the cities are expected to balance everything correctly, and they are at a billions of dollar deficit. Some of the funding that we get from the state. And some of the things that we're doing, we're getting these USDA loans, some of it's federal, but will that affect us in any way? With that, I mean, it's something I've constantly been concerned about, is the fact that we are in such a deficit in the state of California. How will that affect our cities?
So,
I know it's
yeah.
Kind of a big question.
So that's a great question. For our main revenue sources such as sales tax or gas tax, that is not going to have an impact because that's made by statute. So whatever they collect, now there can be softening in the sales tax, so then we would get less, but the state can't come back and say, we're not going to give you your 1% out of the 7.25% that the state receives. So we will always get that. The gas tax is similar. Gas tax is paid cents per gallon, but the gas tax is distributed on population. So if our population goes down or goes up, that allocation will happen based on that and based on what the total pool is. So as people start driving less or more EV vehicles get on the road and the gas tax dollars collected goes down, that can have an effect. But generally speaking, not so. The biggest impact that a state deficit has on a city is our ability to go get state grants, because that's the first thing that they freeze up. So the first thing that they say, no more, they freeze grant programs. And so the ability to go get CDBG loans or not loans, but grants, that will have an effect on some special projects that we may want to do, such as infrastructure projects. Those we will, those we see happening. We've seen it throughout history. When there's plenty in the state coffers, the grants go up and they offer grant money. When the coffers go down and they have deficits, that's the first thing that they freeze up. Kind of like in our budget, when we have a problem, the first thing most local jurisdictions do is they start freezing travel and training that's not legally required. They start freezing other things, or they stop filling positions and holding positions open for a while to balance the budget. That's how the state handles it.
Also.
So those any questions?
No, very
Okay.
good. Thank you for the presentation. The
All right.
challenge for us, I think, is going to be when we have to make those cuts. And gosh, we've been through that before and it's not fun. Hopefully we won't get there.
Hopefully. All right, then I'll go ahead and open this up to the public. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item may do so at this time. Step.
Henry Martinez. I know that we're running, tightening our belts. And a lot of the money the state's losing is all those electric cars that they're not paying their taxes on the cars. And me, I park my van now not to drive around Gonzales because I do better on the bike. Get everywhere in 5-10 minutes, I get across town. And so, I'm not driving my van like I used to. Now I use the bike, and that's what's happening now. The people are not, and then they're asking later to charge the electric cars a fee to use the roads. Hopefully that'll help us out in the future. And then I'm not hearing that you guys are tightening your belts like to trips out of town. Because when you guys go out of town, we give you a stipend or something like that to pay your foods and when you go out of town. And you go charge it on when you go to Texas to some police convention that you can Zoom it from your office. A lot of stuff can be Zoomed and don't need to leave Gonzales and you guys can save money. You need to show us that you guys are willing to cut your budgets for us to pay for stuff. We're glad to pay the fire department 100% on our properties. So we just charge our tenants. Well, we're not happy paying the police department if they go out of town to a convention in Texas. And that's money misspent for this town. And the drone was another misspent because you gotta look at the weather. It's always windy here. So, you need to tighten their belts. And also pay freezes on everybody. If they don't like pay freezes, just hire someone else to do it cheaper. That's what everybody else is doing, hire everybody cheaper to do the jobs, it's time to cut things and maybe hire a new chief. Another staff members that can do it for less. There's a lot of college kids coming out of school who need jobs and will do it for less. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to comment on this item? See no rush to the podium, then I'll go ahead as Estella, do we have any comments via Zoom?
No comments via Zoom.
Thank you. Mary, any comments via email?
Comments via email.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public meeting and bring it back to council discussion. So if there's no further discussion on the budget, then I'll entertain a motion for approval.
It's, Mr. Mayor, what would be the proper motion for this?
Well, you got two different resolutions, and you're acting two different. One for the city, one for the development, consider success rate agency. So we should make a motion for the consider adopting resolution number 2436. That's the city resolution.
2024, 36?
36, and then you want to follow that with SA 224. 24.
02? Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 2024-36 as presented and SA 2024-02 as presented. Is that proper? Or do I have to read that?
Do the city and then take a vote, then do the. city.
Oh, okay, so the
So that's
first
a
one is
separate-
resolution number 2024-36 as presented.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have the second motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number SA 2024-02 as presented.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All righty,
Through the chair, I just want to ask staff, do you need him to make that other minute motion, Mike, for the authorizing the city manager and finance director to realign the budget, or is that built into the two resolutions? That is built into the budget. Okay, good. All right.
all right, then we'll close that part of it and open up the regular council meeting. Mary, do you want to go ahead and let those folks in that are out there waiting patiently?
Instead of us paying for. You know what I mean? Some of these programs.
What? Oh, you have it on the phone? All right.
Remote.
All right, let's go ahead and start the regular council meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Tell me when they're ready. Okay. All right, if we can have order in the room here, we're going to go ahead and begin the second part of the meeting. Michael, since we have done the pledge of allegiance and done the roll call, can we continue with that, or do I need to redo all of that? Okay, all right, continuing with that, then we'll go ahead and begin the council meeting with some presentations. And the first presentation is item 2, Gonzales Little League Sportsmanship Recognition. So Mary's gonna read the recognition and then call out the names, and I'd like to have the kids come up, shake hands, receive the recognition. And once we're done with that, we're gonna have them all line up in front of the diocese here, and we're gonna take a picture, if that's okay with the parents. Okay, great. Let me walk up there. And thank you for being so patient. Those who don't read it, they go a little longer than you anticipate. But it's for a good reason. All right.
So we have certificates of recognition for outstanding respect for your teammates, coaches, officials, and opponents. And the first one goes to Johnny De La Rosa.
Oh, sorry.
Michael Abrita. Darren Holly.
Hey, now you wait for the picture, is that okay? Just stand right here.
Emilio Medina, Giovanni Uribe, Emiliano Cortez, Aiden Vargas, Joseph Correa, Dorian Flores, David Gomez, Raymond Flores, Leo Cortez, Anastasia Perea, and Emmanuel Oliva. Sorry.
All right, and again, we apologize, again, those are meetings to make sure the city's balanced, and we just got money that will take care of services, so we do apologize. Once you might make it move fast, certainly, I want to be home as much as all of you, but gotta take care, right?
Question.
Yes.
We have to vote, is there a way to schedule people to come back, because they have, so I don't have a vote to take care of the things.
Of course.
Sure. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, we got a whole route outside of his night.
Okay, if you want to inform.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm coordinating with, Isabel tomorrow. Yes, we didn't contact her, maybe she could, maybe we schedule. No, thank you.
Okay, just step up there in front of the dice, we're gonna take a picture. For the entire council. Well, we're gonna make a stand over here.
Yeah.
Start. Okay. Thank you, because. Oh, by the way, there's pizza there, pizza back. Okay? The dinner's on you guys, right? Right? Can I go? Okay.
Big cheese, Mary. Thank you.
Got it?
Are you gonna? Are you gonna present the next one up there?
I think they're gonna tell us.
Or is-
But just give a report.
They're gonna give their report to us. All right, next on the agenda is the Gonzalez Youth Council. End of the year capstone. So who's presenting?
Hello, I'm Luke. Fix this first.
Mr. Negley.
All right. Well, hello, good evening, council. As you all know me, my name is Luke Nagley. I was your past youth commissioner for the most recent term for the Gonzalez Youth Council. And today we have our capstone presentation for the 2023 to 2024 term. And behind me, I have a couple of other members that I'll also be presenting with me.
Hello, my name is Lee Castillo, also past commissioner. Good afternoon or evening, everyone. My name is Lisbeth de Leon Santos, and I am the past ambassador.
So yeah, this is gonna be our presentation on how all the accomplishments that we did, all of our projects, our research projects that we did, and all of our collaborations, all that kind of stuff compiled into one presentation. So we'll be going over each slide, and we'll also be doing an overview of all of our members that we had. And we'll also be having some conclusions and recommendations and feedback at the end. But yeah, next slide, please. All right, there we go. So just a overview of our GYC purpose. It's stayed the same for the past couple of years. It's talking about recommending and sharing information to ensure youth have a voice. That's the whole point of our youth council, is to ensure that youth in our youth council have a voice, have an opinion when it comes to decision making at the table. And we also want them to gain leadership skills, understand how city government works, and building experience, and to help them in their future endeavors. Next slide, please.
For our introduction, obviously we have Luke, and then Lisbeth and I, as well as our VNA Martinez and Valeria. They're both are one of our three, including Lisbeth, ambassadors. For our GYC members, we have quite a lot of more seniors this year around. We have Alejandra Piñon, Angela Madrigal, Jackie Gonzalez, Jocelyn Reyes, Judith Zarate, and Maya Flores, as well as Mirza Lopez and Sofia Navarro. All of those are our seniors. And then we have Emily Mendez, who is a senior next year. Next.
And these were our projects for the fall and for the spring. For the fall, we had the mental health and the mind of the GHS, the Prevention Action Project, the Drug Prevention Week, and the Community Center. And then for the spring, we had the Participating Groundbreaking Mental Health Part 2, our survey that we sent out and the published, the media coverage, tenant rights surveys, and the Youth Summit. Next slide, please.
For the mental health, this project of ours in the GYC has gone on for about 5 years ago, and it still carries on. With our mental health, we had quite a lot of events going on this year. We hosted with the self-care and self-love, which our advisor, Cindy, who created at C4 Consulting. And with that, we had our mental health event at the Gonzales High School gym, which turned out very well. And the school district was a huge support in buying one of the materials with the self-love and self-care, who Maya Flores and Liz had supported in leading on the workshop. And this event was very progressive and everybody loved it. So next slide.
The Drug Prevention Week was a project that we had for an entire week at the high school. The GYC partnered up with the fire department to discuss information on Narcan, which we followed up by having a Narcan drive. We also partnered up with Friday Night Live, in which they use stimulation to replicate people's vision when they are intoxicated. Friday Night Live has, for the last 2 years, I believe, been in the school, and every Tuesday have a club session during lunch with students, and they mostly talk about drug prevention. And we also had some street centers, they're around here, And they helped a lot by proving how just a tiny portion of fentanyl can affect and have really, really big consequences. And during this drug prevention week was during the month of February, and it was very, very effective.
Another project that we were a part of and has also kind of been in continuation for a while was our work with the community center. As you know, the GYC was in the planning phase of the center when the city was recruiting the right construction team to work to build the community center. And GYC had met with both of those firms, and the city ended up choosing Auto Construction and WRMS Studios. We met with them various times over the fall semester regarding what kind of things we wanted to see in the community center, and they worked really closely with us to hear kind of what the teen innovation side of the center wanted to have, and like the materials and what kind of things we wanted in the room. But yeah, they asked us what materials we wanted, what textures we wanted, the walls, if we wanted carpet or hardwood flooring. They really went into the nitty gritty of even asking how we wanted the lab to smell. So they were really taking into consideration all of the little things that youth would have in mind when walking into the space. Next slide. And then the groundbreaking was another event that the GYC had a little bit of part in. The groundbreaking was a historical event that the youth participated in and was celebrated locally. And this was one of the instances that the GYC's hard work and dedication to their community had been recognized, and showing that youth can really make an impact if they're persistent about what they want. So the groundbreaking was a really big celebration for the GYC, since it kind of compiled all of our hard work into the community center in one area. So we really looked forward for that event. Next slide.
For the mental health survey, this specific survey that we had focused on was more about the parents' knowledge and comfort about mental health. With this, we partnered with Dr. Laval, psychologist at CSUMB, and a few of her new assistants as well as students. And with the survey, we assembled in the beginning of just collating the databases of questions that we might want to assemble together. And with that, we obviously fixed our grammar, translated it to both English and Spanish. And our team was, very focused on making sure that this specific survey was helpful to, both showcases to the community of Gonzales. Currently, we have this survey due sent out, and we're trying to get as many respondents we can in this survey, and then next year, our ambassadors or commissioners will set off what they want to do next year in GYC. Next slide.
And then one of our last projects that we worked on during the spring was our tenants' rights project. This was something very new that the GYC had never done before. So when we kind of started pursuing it, we were a little lost on like what we could and couldn't do. But we eventually figured out after we met with city leaders, like Ms. Alejandra Flores, who works in the code department, and she was really able to pave the way and like what we can do and like in the direction that we should head in when it comes to kind of asking residents about their rights and what they do and don't know. The youth wanted renters to know what their rights were based on personal experience, because a lot of our GYC members had expressed that growing up that they really didn't know what their rights were and what they could and couldn't do with their landlord and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the members that were involved in this project also had personal reasons on why they wanted to pursue this project and make sure something was done about it. When we did make our survey, we had about 67 responses, And we were making a pamphlet based on what the responses has said. And we were also going to share the responses of what we received with the city as well, so they can also be a part in helping what the city should do for their residents when we're building the new houses here in the future. So we'll also be sharing the responses with you all as well pretty soon. And a majority of the responses, here were some of the comments that were left. About half of the respondents were unaware of what their tenant rights were. More than a third of responses share that their landlord does not provide adequate maintenance repairs nor follow proper safety codes for their renters. And 3/4 of respondents also show that they were very interested in buying future housing with a preference over houses versus apartments. So we also did, the way that we also did a lot of this outreach was going in person to the food distribution drives. A lot of people who get the food from the Salvation Army are renters, and we just went up to them. Lisbeth was part of the team, and we just were asking them some of the questions, and they were very helpful in filling them out. Some of them included some personal responses, because we also had a section at the end for any comments they'd like to share, but we did receive a lot of very interesting responses. But it looks like everyone was really looking forward to the future housing project that is coming up. So we were glad that we were able to hear that. But yeah, this was a very new project for us because it was a research-based project and we were doing this all by ourselves. So it was a very, very interesting experience to go through. But yes, next slide, please.
Mr. Negley,
Mhm.
before I let you go on that one, can I ask you the number of folks interviewed, or do you have a list, or just not number? How many folks was it? Okay, I'm
67,
sorry.
yeah. It was 67. We-
67,
And we
okay.
kept it mostly anonymous. The only like real demographic questions
That's
we
fine,
asked.
that's fine. I just wanted to
Yeah.
know the number. Thank you.
Okay. Mhm.
And pardon, these are some of the examples of the media coverage that we received this year. There's some of the groundbreaking, the mental health wellness fair at Gonzalez, teen engagement in Gonzalez, Aaliyah being on the front page of the Monterey County Weekly. There's a very, I mean, I don't know if you guys can really see it, but it's like a picture of us in the process of the South County Youth Summit. So that is only a little bit of this year. Next page, next slide, please. And this year we were recognized on KSBW in the newspaper more than 8 times. And the Gonzalez Youth Commissioners and Ambassadors helped Greenfield in the creation of their youth council, as well as the Soledad Youth Council supporting them. Next slide, please.
With the Youth Summit, this was a historical event taking place with the Gonzalez collaboration, Greenfield, and Soledad. This collaboration was an event to get together both communities, collating with our youth summits, both of them creating their newly established GYC of their own. And with that, in this event, we had a total of 60 students came to be hosted. And with this event, we shared many activities from Gonzalez events / projects, and as well as theirs. We talked about mental health, how to self-care, self-love, as well as adulting 101. And some of these projects were bigly progressive in these students getting the outcome. Near towards the end, we had a little project in the end where we collaborated on how we would work that and how would we want to see that in our own community if we would want to move forward. This event not only was giving leadership skills and many other opportunities. It gave Soledad and Greenfield their chance to get more volunteers in their new GYC Youth Council, as well as ours for next year. And overall, it was a big turnout event. It was a good progress for all of us, having a historical moment of us collaborating, which hopefully will be another event coming in the upcoming years. So next slide. For the conclusion, like Lisbeth had mentioned in the previous slides, GYC has had one of its most recognizations on social media and within our community of Gonzales. Our GYC members have been really ambitious to prove our passionate projects within our community, which has shaped us for GYC. And we greatly appreciate, the city of Gonzales, council members, and just overall providing support in the founding of GYC in the 2015 to presently now. And we just continue to, support that event for next year and in the further on years for leadership and development. So thank you.
In our slides, we tend to have a call to action. However, this year, we seem to have forgotten. However, we did brainstorm 3 ideas to bring forth to the council. So our first call to action or recommendation would be if the city helped us more with technology, such as city emails. We would also really appreciate it if you guys allowed us to use technology in the very same chambers we are in now. We would appreciate it if we could possibly be trained to use it as we have in the past. This entire year, we thank the police department for allowing us to use the meeting room. However, when I first joined the youth council, we did most of our meetings here. So if it could be possible, next year we could start having our meetings here and in the police department possibly. We would love if you guys kept encouraging and securing our advisors that have helped the youth. We have appreciated the help of Miss Jessica and Miss Cindy and Miss Michelle, so please help us in recognizing their hard work and continue on allowing them to work with the GYC. And finally, as the budget is revised right now, we would highly appreciate it if the council could secure a more flexible budget. This was the first year we had to fundraise in order to fund the countless projects we were working on. While working with the Soledad and Greenfield Youth Councils, we noticed how their youth commissioners were often paid and given more prominent roles in the city. We would highly appreciate it, considering we are the pioneers of the youth councils in the South County, if the city of Gonzales considers some of these ideas for the future Gonzales youth councils. Thank you.
And lastly, I just want to add on another recommendation. And I just wanted to say that maybe also giving the youth commissioners a more prominent role in City Hall, because when we met with the other youth commissioners from the other 2 cities, they had mentioned to us that they had a very prominent role in their City Hall. They were always in and out. They even had the Greenfields youth commissioners had a little office space. It was a little table for them to get their work done, any GYC stuff that they had to take care of. They also even had employee shirts, like the city of Gonzales, and it would say their name on the shirt. So they had a lot of cool little things. They even had pens with the youth council. So I'm just putting out ideas, but yeah, some merch or something for our GYC, but they had a lot of cool little things, and I was like, oh, maybe I should bring those up to my council. But other than that, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to have done the youth council again. This year is my 2nd year being a commissioner and the longest serving member. I really had a great time, and I really was able to connect with my community in a way I never thought I would have. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question, for all three of you. You guys are senior, all three of you are seniors?
Lisbeth is a junior, so
Lisbeth
me and
is a
Lisbeth
junior.
are seniors. Yeah.
But the question I have is, the first year that we had COVID was your freshman year and you were in eighth grade, I would imagine. And I know you've all been working on the mental health project. Have you seen an increase in attitude with the students? Do they seem better over the, this past years since COVID is sort of in the rear, hopefully in the rear view mirror? Do you feel like their mental health has improved? I guess is my question.
I would say that their mental health, it's gotten better from how it was like as soon as we got out, like slowly they have been transitioning to a more better state, but I would still say there kind of is still a lack of resources around mental health, and that stigma is still kind of prominent, but it's much better than where it was 2 years ago. I'll say that for sure.
It has gotten, well, obviously, as Luke had mentioned before, there is still some stigma and there's still some progress to be done. But overall, personally, for me, I have seen some advancement in the school, adding more mental health counselors in their libraries, more small activities in clubs like EOP, who takes care of college advising for Liz's career students of the year. But yeah, the school has been more active in creating and being more active within mental health for the students. And for the GYC, I think we just wanted to see if that progress moving forward would also be beneficial, and working with the parents, making sure that both student and parents are getting the same support and attention.
I guess my last question is, and the only people that can answer this question, I believe, are you. Do you feel like social media plays a big part in mental health?
Well, I mean, personally, it would have to depend on, that would be a controversial question. I mean, personally, for me, it could go both ways, depending on how active you're on social media, and making sure that you have ground barriers for yourself, making sure that if it's not healthy to be so much active in social media, then to put a step ground and making sure that you take a step back for a while from that environment, making sure that, your mindset is more positive and open-minded for the body and mind, as well as going to school and working on that mind with education and socializing with friends and everybody. It's really important to make sure you have that realization of how active you are in social media.
Great answer. Thank you.
I mean, well, yeah, it for sure can hinder your state of mind. And I think it also is because of like the shift of like technology over the years, and like how you could hear about literally about anything and everything on your phone. Cause before you would hear things maybe like on the newspaper, on TV, by word of mouth, or seeing a flyer, but now it's all condensed into your phone, and a lot of that stuff is now on social media. So I definitely do think it can hinder it, but like Aaliyah was mentioning, if you set boundaries, if you know your limits, if you're letting it like take over like your whole life, then I think that's probably not too good for you to be on social media that much. But I think if you have self-control, then I think it's totally manageable.
Well, with what Aaliyah said, social media can have both its positive and negative effects on you. For me personally, I think social media is what exposed me to mental health. It taught me what mental health was. It taught me how different mental health can look on people, how it is not what when you see someone that's going through mental health issues, you don't normally think like, oh, they're going through mental health. It's not a physical illness, it's a mental illness. And that is what social media has taught me. So for me, social media has positively taught me a lot about mental health. A lot of the mental health sources that I have myself have used are in social media. So it really just depends on what way you access it. But it is important to remember that social media is a very powerful tool that can be both manipulated into a good outcome or a negative outcome. Thank you. Thank you.
That concludes our presentation.
Any other questions? No? You've done very well. Thank you. Yeah, really good job. So we'll move on to business from the public. Business from the public. Any member of the public may address the council on any item not on the agenda. The council will listen to all discussion, but will take no action.
Henry Martinez, 112 10th Street, not 114. That was only 1% of the population of Gonzales they asked, not even 1%. They didn't even bother asking landlords how we feel. You know, what do we do to protect the tenants' rights? You know, one of the, you know, we understand the parents, and the tenants' rights. We work with the fire department. And me and the chief ran into, what do you call it? Out-of-towner landlords who don't take care of their properties, and then make us local landlords that do take care of our properties and do respect the rights, make us look bad. You know, they should at least gotten at least 50% of the renters to answer their survey. And also, I wanted to announce that this is also my name for my running for city council for District 4. I'm gonna put it on the ballot. They call me cop hater. I'm gonna put it on the ballot. And I'm going around town, 4th District, talking to my neighbors and tell them who I am, why they call me cop hater. And I tell them 10 years of violating my rights, properties, false arrests, false accusements, and catching them flying drones when it's windy, broadcasting videos, you know, and they call me a cop hater. The other day I praised one of the officers that got off the car and played football with the kids. And I went up to him and I said, isn't it kind of hard playing with 80 pounds of equipment, tossing the football? And he says, yeah. And that's a cop hater? No, it's not. I praised him. I even put it on Facebook. The guy got off and I put on Facebook. All the other older cops would have told the kids to get off the street and stop playing football. And they call me a cop hater. I'm here speaking, you know, speaking on issues. And they still call me cop haters. Just the other day, I got a phone call telling me that I shouldn't be talking about the cops. And then the other day I got another phone call. They said, how long did I hate the cops? Was it 14 years? Was it 10 years? You know, why are you calling me a cop hater? I'm just a citizen that has my opinion and like putting my opinion out, and hopefully that my opinions will change your mindsets, and maybe we can get along and maybe get these 4th Street fixed. That's bad road. And this is what people talk about.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Anyone else wishing to make any comments? I don't see anyone either. Estela, do we have anyone via Zoom?
Yes,
Okay.
Henry.
Hello?
Are they muted?
No.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can't hear the audio. Is there a way you can communicate with them, let them know we can't hear you? Is that us or them?
I might this time.
Hello?
Henry, are you unmuted?
Yes. Hello?
It says it's talking, but we can't hear him, so
Is that our system?
I think it's their system. Otherwise it wouldn't say he was talking. I don't know if you want to call him in, Henry.
Hello? Well, it's your computer. Here's the phone. You know how real your phone and mic? Okay.
That sounds like good. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay, this is Henry Martinez Jr.
Yes,
Well,
Mr.
116 10th Street. Last time I gave you guys the laws on surveillance and for the drone usage. California prohibits the recording and gathering any kind of evidence against anybody without being processed first. So you cannot record nobody in the acts of what they're doing. And second, which one is it? AB 856 of California Assembly. The law prohibits entering the airspace of individuals to capture an image or recording of that individual engaging in a private, personal, or familial activities without permission. Again, you cannot record with that drone. And the drone handler, it will be held accountable, which is Officer, I believe, Mendoza or Mendoza, I'm not too sure. But so if I see that drone up, I will take a picture of the drone. I will file charges against the officer using it because I'm pretty sure he does not have permission from any of the residents in Gonzales to record their properties and enter their own personal airspace. Let this be a warning to the police department. That drone goes up, we're coming after the officer. I already have 60 signatures from homeowners saying they do not give the permission to be recorded. And that number will continue to grow because you guys are not, letting the homeowners know what is going on with this drone. So again, I do not allow that drone to record any of my properties, any of my family members, any of my homes or anything, period. So I hope you guys really look at these laws and reconsider sending that drone up on the 4th of July.
That it?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Estella, do we have anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak?
Nobody else.
Mary, anyone via email?
No comments via email.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and close the public comment period and bring it back to council. And moving forward, we'll move ahead with the consent agenda. Items 5 through 17, and I'm hoping that you had an opportunity to review all of those. I do have one that I'd like to pull just for clarification. Other than that, does anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments? Nope. Okay. The only one I had a question about, and I'm sure staff will answer it quickly, is item 14, which is engineering services for the new wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Dobbins? I was under the impression that we've done all the engineering and all we're needing to do is go out for a construction loan and start moving on.
This is for bid and award phase. So we're compiling the bid documents now. And this takes us through award.
Okay, so it's just bidding of the award for,
Correct.
okay, thank you. See, I told you could answer it. All right, having no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion for approval for items, consented items 5 through 17.
Move to approve.
Second.
Oh, I'll go ahead and take Maria's second. First and a second, Maria's with a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, regular item number 18. Salinas Valley Safe Routes to School Plan and Participatory Budget Process. Staff report.
Mayor Rios, council members. As stated in the staff report, the Salinas Valley Safe Routes to School project has been a two-year effort to develop pedestrian improvements in the vicinity of the K through 12 schools in the cities of Gonzales, Soledad, Greenfield, and King City. It's funded through 2 grants, including TAMSI's Measure X. I'm gonna, the number of the planning team is here. At the podium is Aaron Hernandez, who led the effort. He's a transportation planner with TAMSI. We have staff with Ecology Action, Stand Up Gino, and then County Health is also here. So just the team really turned out for this item. So the Gonzales Steering Committee was formed by volunteer residents to discuss and develop recommendations that were used in the participatory budget process. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron, who's going to take you through the slide deck that's in your packet attached to the staff report. It's all yours, Aaron.
Right, thank you, Patrick. Good evening, council members. My name is Aaron Hernandez. I'm a transportation planner with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of the participatory budgeting process, which is a segment of the overall Salinas Valley Safe Routes to School plan, which that is expected to be completed by the end of this year. So next slide. So what is participatory budgeting? Unlike your traditional community engagement methods where folks are either invited to speak at a town hall or take a survey, participatory budgeting takes a different approach where community members are directly involved in how they decide about allocating public funding. Participatory budgeting allows for community members to learn about the entire process that it takes in constructing transportation / infrastructure projects and all the planning that goes behind it. So we guide them through that process and they get to learn all the nitty-gritty stuff about that. It also allows for community members to, with this knowledge, to make informed decisions of how projects get prioritized given all the needs that there is in the community. So of course, in order to do participatory budgeting, you need funding. So that's why TAMSI is providing $250,000 to fund projects in Gonzales using our Regional Surface Transportation Program funds. Next slide. And then can you skip one slide actually? Thank you. So in kicking off the participatory budgeting process, the planning team of TAMSI, Ecology Action, and the Health Department, and among others, helped with the formation of the steering committee. To recruit folks, we distributed applications to folks with local community-based organizations. We've had some of our team go out to do presentations at schools, such as parent meetings. And then we also did various walk audits in the initial phases of the Salinas Valley plan, where we would go visit schools during peak traffic hours to identify what traffic safety hazards there are. And a lot of our recruitment was successful thanks to the health department's extensive network and connections that they have in the Gonzales community throughout the Salinas Valley. We recognize that the health department has done quite some programming in each of the 4 cities of the Salinas Valley beforehand. So they have a lot of those extensive connections to help recruit key folks in the community. So with this formation of the steering committee, about 14 members participated, but we had about like 6, maybe 7 core members who were very consistent in attending the meetings. The meetings were held monthly for 3 hours. We had a total of 8 meetings. So given that these meetings were really long and extensive per month, we did compensate for their time. And the committee is consisted of residents and community advocates. For some of them, this is their first time getting involved in a committee whose goals are to increase safe routes to schools for students. And one of the goals actually for the committee also, when we had first formed, was a question of where is youth involvement? And I don't know if the youth council, the youth council left, but we did reach out to the youth council and invited them to the steering committee as well. But given their extensive involvement already on a lot of things going on in the city, they were able to participate in the steering committee, but they did actually provide a lot of feedback in terms of street safety that they have observed, and they really helped out in the initial phases of this process. So just want to give a shout out to them, but they left right now. So with that, could you turn to the previous slide? And so now I'll get into the process of participatory budgeting itself. It's a 4-step process that we designed with the committee on this. So it starts with the steering committee kind of designing what the whole outlay of the participatory budgeting process will look like. In our first few meetings, it started with establishing rules for a community election, where then later on the committee gets, the general committee gets to vote on projects that the committee would decide would go on a ballot. And at the same time, as they're designing the process, they're also reviewing a large list of project recommendations that our consultant and among other existing planning documents, we used as resources to create these project recommendations. And we also had City Public Works also review those project recommendations, so that we're not giving the committee projects that are unrealistically would be able to be implemented. And from that large list, this large list will go in the final Safe Routes to School, Salinas Valley Safe Routes to School plan. But from that list, we, TAMC staff identified which projects would be eligible for participatory funding. So in order to be eligible for PB funding, it had to be a project less than 250,000, be able to be implemented within 3 years, because that's our grant timeline to use the funds. And it has to be a project that leads to a safe route to school. So once the election planning is complete, who gets to vote, where should we do our outreach, how many projects get on the ballot, the committee then selects the ballots from that larger list. The committee had 25 projects to review. So one of the things they wanted to do is funnel down those projects to the most important ones, so that voters are able just to look at a few projects instead of having to read a long list and get themselves confused with all the text that's going on the ballot. So the committee decided with 6 final projects for the ballot. And so once the ballot is set, we then worked with our consultants to print out all the materials for the election and get prepared for the election. We worked with the committee in all the logistics for preparing the community election. So basically the election took place from April 18th through May 18th. This was actually our longest election period out of the 4 Salinas Valley cities, so it lasted for about a month. Folks had the option to vote online or in person. In our in-person options, we had 6 ballot locations across the city at the schools, City Hall, the library, and St. Theodore's Church. And the committee also did extensive outreach throughout this voting period at existing community events. So at the Gonzalez Car Show, we had a booth set up where folks we used the Gonzalez Car Show as our kickoff event for the election. So we had a flyer that actually invited folks to come to the Gonzalez Car Show. And then the committee did some outreach in Dia de los Niños, Day of the Child, Cinco de Mayo. And then there's also a lot of outreach like at food distributions. One of our committee members is heavily involved in the Adventure Seeking Seniors. So there was a lot of outreach done through various parts of the community. And the final step in this whole process is where we are here today, where the committee will ask for you guys to approve their recommendation. And then after that, TAMC will distribute the funding. So next slide. So. So with the election results of what came out of that community election, a total of 492 ballots were submitted. So one ballot per person. The majority of these ballots were submitted in person versus digital, and 337 out of the 492 were submitted in Spanish. So this shows the effectiveness of spreading the word by going to where the community already gathers. Most of the in-person ballots were actually done by all the committee's efforts of promoting the election at the existing events that the community already participates in. And a fun fact, out of the 4 Salinas Valley cities in the Safe Routes to School plan, Gonzales had the highest participation rate amongst voters. It was about 6, but knowing with elections, it's general that you get low participation rates, but 6% of the whole city voted, which is much higher than the other 3 cities. So congratulations to the committee and their efforts. So next slide, please. So what you see here on the slides are the election results by detail by project. Based on these results, the committee spent time before this meeting to discuss how the committee wants to present these projects to the city council. And I think with that, I will pass it to Lorraine Ramirez, who will present the steering committee's recommendation for city council's consideration. And she will present it in English. Go ahead.
Good evening, City Council and community. My name is Lorraine Ramirez, and I am a member of the Gonzales Safe Routes to School Steering Committee. I'm asking for your support in approving the 2 most voted projects by the community. Prioritizing Project 2 first, pedestrian improvements on 5th Street and Highway 101 on and off ramps, and approving Project 1, pedestrian improvements on Rincon Road and 5th Street. The benefits that approving Project 2 and Project 1 will provide are the following: to create safer, more accessible streets for our students and community to increase physical activity, to find solutions to improve pedestrian and traffic safety long-term, to improve safety for pedestrians by increasing visibility, and to decrease the speed of vehicles and to warn drivers to slow down and prepare to stop and yield to pedestrians. Thank you, Council. And now I'd like to pass it on to Guillermina Flores, who will be providing the recommendations in Spanish.
Buenas tardes, miembros del Concilio Comunidad. Mi nombre es Guillermina Flores y soy miembro del Comité Directivo de Rutas Seguras a las Escuelas de Gonzales. Les pido su apoyo para aprobar los 2 proyectos que recibieron más votos en la comunidad. Aprobar y darle prioridad al proyecto número 2. Mejoras peatonales en la calle 5 y las rampas de entrada y salida del Freeway 101. Y aprobar el proyecto número 1. Mejoras peatonales en la calle Rincón y la calle 5. Los beneficios que aportarían al aprobar estos proyectos, el 2 y el proyecto 1, son los siguientes: crear calles más seguras y accesibles para nuestros estudiantes y la comunidad para aumentar la actividad física, encontrar soluciones de largo plazo para mejorar la seguridad de peatones y tráfico, mejorar la seguridad de los peatones al aumentar la visibilidad, alertar a los conductores que reduzcan la velocidad y que se preparen para cederle el paso a los peatones. Gracias. Le paso la palabra a Aaron Hernández.
This is Guillermina, and thank you, Lorraine. So with their recommendation presented now, I did want to point out one thing on the steering committee table that you see there. So the top project, I just wanted to give a big thank you to City Staff Patrick and Carmen. and Caltrans for their proactiveness in addressing safety concerns at the Fifth Street Bridge intersection. One thing that's kind of been in the back of our heads throughout this whole process with the committee is that on the first meeting, which was September 20th, our first meeting kicked off, we had an incident where a student was actually collided with a vehicle there on the Fifth Street Bridge, and that student was airlifted. So it definitely brought a lot of concern to our committee with a lot of the residents coming to that meeting, and a lot of those residents sticking to learning about the process, like how can we get Fifth Street improved, after a lot of years of like advocating and such. So so with city staff, Caltrans, and then amongst other TAMC staff, such as our executive director, we actually were able to invite everybody to the table in some of our first steering committee meetings. This is actually Caltrans' first time participating in the PB process in one of the steering committee meetings out of all the cities. So, and we were all able to have a discussion with community members regarding the Fifth Street Bridge. So with all those discussions and follow-up meetings, Caltrans was able to complete a traffic investigation about that incident that occurred in September. And the first, project number 2, it includes a high visibility crosswalk installation on all 6 crosswalks for both Fifth Street Bridge intersections. So with that traffic investigation, Caltrans was able to come in and respond immediately after their investigation to paint all those crosswalks, all those 6 crosswalks. So I guess it's just an example to show like when we're able to find ways to make those immediate responses, it doesn't solve the entire issue, but it is a stepping stone towards finding that solution. So, and also doing this also helps reduce costs from the project that we have on here. So that way the costs could be set to other parts of the project. Because as we've been learning through this PB process with all 4 cities, the original cost estimate that you see there will not be the cost estimate when it's implemented. It will go up and inflation will keep going up. So, so with that installation of the crosswalk, that helped reduce that cost from going up further. And next slide. And so as a result of the community, so with that, we'd like to leave it up to the city council to approve the steering committee's recommendation. Of course, you can always make modifications to it, or if you have questions on it, we'd be happy to answer. And with this approval, TAMC will then be able to provide the $250,000 as soon as our next board meeting at the end of August. And then once the funding is distributed to the city then has 3 years to implement the projects with this funding. So next slide. So with that, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may.
So Mayor Rios, council members, so that concludes our presentation. I do want to make a point that this is a receive staff report and presentation. I was planning to bring this back at the July meeting with more information, more details, more detailed costs on these top 2 recommended projects.
So this is strictly an informational item then?
Correct, and
Okay.
provide feedback to staff, but I need to do a deeper dive into these top 2 proposed projects and confirm soft cost, hard costs. As Aaron mentioned, Caltrans went out about a month ago and striped the crosswalks at the Fifth Street Bridge with the high visibility. That's something we can take off the list for now. Maybe there's another element or 2 at that interchange. So hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
I guess that's my question. What does the current 35,000 give us? What does
Right.
based on that? So then we won't know that until you get back.
Correct. And so from my involvement in this, they were fairly high level planning cost estimates, and they need to get into the details. What will it take to implement these projects from design and construction?
So,
My question is, so these projects will be done in-house or are we going to seek outside help for this?
I assume that I would seek outside help. And that's why I need to understand, yeah, what's the soft cost
Okay.
element of this?
Thank you.
Sorosco?
That was kind of the same question that I had in terms of how these projects will take place, but we'll get more information when you come back
Correct.
with the report. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
And I had just one question. It's fantastic that you guys were able to cohere or encourage Caltrans to work with us and thereby highlight those intersections. That's fantastic. But I think their timing was a little bit off because school was ending. I would have loved to have seen that first part of August when school is about to begin and they're nice and bright because I imagine within, the following months and the heat and whatnot, most of that stuff will get worn off. I'm hoping not, but
So I'm going to speak to that's thermoplastic, which lasts much longer than the standard paint application.
oh, great.
City's responsible for maintaining that moving forward. But yes, at least just wanted to mention that's the higher grade, the much more longer lasting striping is the thermoplastic, and that's what Caltrans applied.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, that answers my question. All right. Since it's just an informational item, there's no action needed unless, no? Wait, Mr. Martinez. So this is still at the council.
Those two.
Those two, you guys are good with those two?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if the city residents are okay, I'm good with that. Okay, we'll go ahead and open this up to the public for any public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this may do so at this time.
I said it and I said it over again. We need giant signs facing the on ramps or the off ramps to the intersection. Crossing the bridge, we need signs with kids crossing the road so people can pay attention, because the lady from Soledad was distracted driver. Wasn't too sure how she was distracted, but when she hit the kid, she didn't see the kid cross in the intersection because she was distracted. More visible signs saying the kids are crossing there. That's what we need. Also, we need more patrol officers, not in their offices. The captain and the sergeant and the chief need to be out there when the kids are out of school. What does it take? Half an hour just to cruise back and forth? They just stay in their office. Because I went to the school the other day before they were out. I didn't see no police cars. I saw them before the school was out, drive by. That's what I'm doing on my bike. I'm going around town, looking at everything in town. And I don't see the chief on the road. I don't see the captain on the road. The only time I seen the captain going on the road was he was going to McDonald's or Starbucks. That's a priority. We need more involvement with the city. Put up the signs. Get them out of their office for a half an hour in the morning and the afternoon. And the city will be safe. Thank you. They're doing a good job, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. All right. Anyone else who's wishing to speak on this item? Doesn't look like. Oh, we have some. Oh, fantastic.
Buenas tardes, miembros del Concilio y Comunidad. Nosotros somos el señor Nájera y yo soy Eneida Flores. Somos miembros del Comité Directivo de Rutas Seguras a las escuelas en González. Queremos calles más seguras para nuestros estudiantes y comunidad para que puedan caminar y andar en bicicleta. El Comité Directivo del Presupuesto Participativo de Rutas Seguras a las escuelas nos ha dado la oportunidad de identificar y evaluar las preocupaciones y necesidades de nuestra comunidad, colaborar con otras personas, desarrollar nuestras habilidades de liderazgo, usar nuestra voz para abogar las necesidades y seguridad de la comunidad, ser parte de un grupo que nos permite expresar nuestras preocupaciones, tener calles más seguras para nuestros hijos y la comunidad. Y por último, presentar nuestras opiniones públicamente por primera vez durante el comentario público. En nombre de la comunidad de González y miembros del comité directivo, les pedimos su apoyo para que aprueben los proyectos 2 y 1, dándole más prioridad al proyecto 2. Estos proyectos son los primeros pasos esenciales para crear calles más seguras y asegurando el bienestar de la comunidad, permitiéndole a los niños caminar o andar en bicicletas seguros a las escuelas. Gracias.
Gracias a usted. Yeah, go ahead, Carmen. I'll let you.
Wrote it down at the end, but basically, I didn't catch their names. Mary, did you catch their names? ¿Cuáles son sus nombres otra vez? Aneida y. They're, they were able to collaborate with a committee, the Safe Routes to School Committee, and really enjoyed the process and the ability to voice their opinions and concerns to develop more safe routes to schools. And they are here to present their recommendations forward to the council this evening. They're recommending, they're asking for the support of the council to, for their recommendations of 1 and 2, and ask that you support in their process to create more safe routes to school for children and those using the lanes to walk. Did I miss anything? I think that was. Oh, and including bicycle lanes.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay.
Buenas tardes,
Buenas tardes.
miembros del Concilio y la comunidad. Mi nombre es María Flores y soy miembro del Comité Directivo de Rutas Seguras a las Escuelas de González. Yo ingresé a este comité directivo del presupuesto participativo de Rutas Seguras a las escuelas porque quería calles más seguras para nuestros estudiantes y la comunidad, para que pudieran caminar y andar en bicicleta con seguridad. El Comité Directivo del Presupuesto Participativo de Rutas Seguras a las Escuelas me ha dado la oportunidad para identificar y evaluar las preocupaciones y necesidades de la comunidad, colaborar con otras personas. También me ha ayudado a desarrollar mis habilidades de liderazgo y también a usar mi voz para abogar por las necesidades y seguridad de mi comunidad. Y también ha sido muy importante creando conciencia sobre la importancia de participar cívicamente en nuestra comunidad para crear cambios positivos. Por último, en nombre de la comunidad y miembro del comité directivo, les pido su apoyo para los proyectos 2 y 1 que sobresalieron durante la elección comunitaria, dándole prioridad al proyecto 2. Estos proyectos son los primeros pasos esenciales para crear calles más seguras y asegurando el bienestar de la comunidad, permitiendo a los niños caminar y estar seguros de la escuela a su casa. Gracias.
Gracias a usted. Carmen? You got it?
She's gonna write everything down.
She understood
You
everything.
understood? Okay, I think the biggest thing was, she's asking for support for recommendation 1 and 2, but prioritizing 2. So that was the biggest just step.
That was the same with the previous. Someone else? Anyone else? ¿Alguien más?
Buenas noches,
Buenas noches.
miembros del Concilio y comunidad. Mi nombre es Virgilia Flores y soy miembro del Comité Directivo de Rutas Seguras a las Escuelas de González. He sido residente de González por más de 30 años. Ingresé al Comité Directivo de Presupuesto Participativo porque quería calles más seguras para nuestros estudiantes y comunidad. El Comité Directivo de Presupuesto Participativo, Rutas Seguras a las Escuelas, me ha dado la oportunidad de usar mi voz para abogar por las necesidades y seguridad de mi comunidad. Ser parte de una comunidad que nos permite expresar nuestras inquietudes y preocupaciones para hacer calles más seguras para nuestros hijos. Y por último, presentar mi opinión por primera vez en el comentario público. En nombre de la comunidad, como residente de González, padre de familia y miembro del comité directivo, pido de su apoyo para aprobar los proyectos 2 y 1 que sobresalieron durante las elecciones de la comunidad, dándole prioridad al proyecto número 2. Estos proyectos son los primeros pasos esenciales para crear calles más seguras y asegurando el bienestar de la comunidad, permitiendo a los niños caminar seguros de la escuela a su casa. Gracias.
Gracias a usted.
You good? Okay. Yes, prioritizing 1 and 2. And number 2, okay. Let me know if you have any more questions.
Alguien más? Anyone else?
Okay, so our attorney is still requesting that I translate just so that it gets on the record. So I'll translate what I captured. So she is a 30-year resident that came to the committee to participate on the committee because she wanted safer streets for the community. The committee has offered her an opportunity to voice her opinions and to advocate for safer routes for the folks using the streets. She's requesting that you support the committee's recommendations of 1 and 2, prioritizing number 2.
Good evening, Mayor Rios, council and city officials and community. My name is Lisa Gonzalez, and I am a member of the Gonzales City Safe Routes to School Steering Committee. In addition, I have been a Gonzales resident for over 50 years. I joined the Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee because I want safer streets for our students and community to walk and bike to school and around our city. Most of you have seen me biking or walking around town, and these projects will make my route safer. The Gonzales City Council also encourages exercise and healthy citizens, and having a safe walking and biking route encourages us to exercise instead of driving. I joined the Safe Routes to School Steering Committee because, as I mentioned, I'm a walker and a biker. This committee is giving me an opportunity to collaborate with other community members to develop my leadership skills, to be part of a community group that allows us to express our concerns and worries to make safer streets for all. Also to create awareness about the importance of being civically engaged in our community to create a positive change. And lastly, to use my voice to advocate for our community's needs and safety. I have been to council meetings in the past and spoken to you about topics I feel strongly about, and this is one of those moments. City Council, please remember that during the community election, our community highlighted the most important projects by voting on Project 2 and Project 1. So on behalf of the community, as a resident of Gonzales, a parent and member of the steering committee, I ask for your support in approving projects 2 and 1. As Aaron mentioned, these are the top 2 projects as voted on during the community election. Project 2 had more votes and should be given top priority. These projects are essential first steps in creating safer streets and ensuring the well-being of the community by allowing children to walk safely to and from school. Thank you for your time and your support.
Thank you. Anyone else? ¿Alguien más? No? Okay. Stella, anyone via Zoom?
No comments via Zoom.
Thank you. Mary, any comments via
No
email?
comments via email.
Okay, bring it back to council. Any further discussion? I will make the note and suggest to Mr. Dobbins that obviously sounds like option 2 is the primary option. And so if you could concentrate on that one first, we'd, as a council, I think would appreciate it. If I'm speaking online, please say so. Other than that, we'll go ahead and close that item of discussion up and move forward. All right. So next on the agenda, we have business from the city council, council board committee reports. League of Cities, I have nothing. AMBAG, Mr. Funk is not here, so we're down to MSC.
All right, just quickly, we have voted in a new chair and a new vice chair to MST. I will be the vice chair this year of MST. Hooray for me. We have approved a zero emissions bus, which will be purchased, from Gilling, and that will not exceed 1.368 million, which is one of my really great things that I approve of. We went over our capital budget, same as our cities. We went over our budget and approved it for the year 24-25. Update on the SURF project. And the last thing that I want to say from this particular meeting was I have shared this. I asked Mary to share with everyone today on the council. It was Measure Q polling. As you all know, we've been having discussions about our tax measures and parcel tax. MST went ahead and did a data survey with different folks. I thought it'd be really interesting for the council members and staff to look at that, to see where how people feel about, now this is transportation, but there are some of those that they're just absolutely opposed to. They looked at an 8 cents tax. They looked at a 6 cents tax. And it was very interesting to look at the demographic, which is something that I was really interested in, especially from South County. And it was very interesting. So I really hope that all of you will have an opportunity to look at that. For those of you on the staff that didn't get that, hopefully, Mary, maybe you can share that with them as well. So anyway, that's all I had. It was a very interesting meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Oral communications, we'll start with Maria this one.
Thank you. Allergies are just really bad today, so just want to congratulate again all the graduates who graduated recently. Jose and I did attend the Saturday graduation ceremony for the high school, and it was really nice to see all the kids and the parents there for their children. Also wanted to mention that Rotary is working on plans for the 4th of July festivities. We'll have the parade that will start at 11 from the Taylor Medical Facility and then ending at Central Park. We will also be having our famous barbecue ribs. So we have tickets. I think Carmen, did you get tickets? And Tavin, and we all have tickets. We're all members of Rotary. So once again, we're looking forward to everybody being able to attend the festivities. Thank you.
So.
Sounds like Tavin has tickets. I have a couple of things. Just to remind everybody that the adult aqua fitness is ongoing right now, Monday through Friday, starting at 6 p.m. through 7 p.m. Lorraine and I have gone to a few sessions and I have loved it, every minute of it. So if you're in, I know. If you're interested, go to teamsideline.com to register or talk to somebody at City Hall. Saturday, June 29th is our community cleanup day. Starts at 8 a.m. until full at Fairview. So if you got junk, they got space for a while. Big week is coming up. So all you cowboys and cowgirls, it'll be July 17th to the 21st. So dress up as cowboys and cowgirls for a week. And lastly, I wanted to praise our law enforcement here in Gonzales for the recent assistance given using the drone in that recent police activity that unfortunately came through our town, but it started in San Luis Obispo County. Through the use of that drone, I believe that you apprehended the 2 suspects in a very quick manner and without incident. So thank you so much for keeping us safe. That's all I have.
Thank you. Again.
I echo Councilmember Silva's comment about our police department and that drone. I think that was incredible. I think that definitely showcased something that is positive. I would really like to understand more about that. Some of this misinformation that's being out there I think it'd be interesting to get the proper information on that at some point. I also would, if it's possible, I found the budget information tonight very useful, and I like the pies. Is it possible for us to get a copy of that? Because I really like looking at that. I'm a visual person, and it's very, very helpful for me too. Lastly, I would like to thank the American Legion for providing Flag Day ceremony on Friday on the proper way to dispose of the American flag. I'd like to thank Chris Lopez for attending, a couple of our fighters who came over and helped with the actual burning of the flag. Our mayor also attended. We had the football team from Gonzales High School. There were about, I'd say 10 to 12 young men who came out to watch what was going on. Now I will thank Coach Ramirez for that, because I know he always likes his students to participate in community events. And also to Steve Fellows and Paul Guzman, who actually did the ceremony. It's very interesting, and I didn't really know a lot about it myself until last year, and it's really heartfelt to watch how that ceremony goes. And lastly, 4th of July is coming up. So everyone, please be careful. Please adhere to the rules and regulations that we've been talking about for quite some time. We had a committee that we formed because we wanted to do the right thing. Please be respectful of your neighbors and your animals. And for those who have mental health issues, PTSD, people who have, who are on the spectrum, please listen to those people, because we all need to be good neighbors. Thank you.
Well, on that note, if you haven't received it at home yet, the flyers are going out bilingual, English and Spanish, to every household in the community. I asked for some extra ones because I'm going to personally go around my neighborhood and hand one of these out to my neighbors, because I don't have pets anymore, but I'm just frustrated that, you know, just a couple houses down, it seems like 4th of July has already started, and I just don't get, you know. And it's funny because I hear all these folks that seem to be having a hard time making ends meet, but yet when 4th of July comes around, somehow they're able to manage to buy these very expensive fireworks. And I don't get that. I have a disconnect with that. I don't totally understand it. I do want to comment on the senior graduation. Maria and I did attend, and fortunate for us, would you agree, Maria, that it was a nice cloudy day until the final graduation? And I'll tell you what, the high school has gotten them like this. They're going quicker and quicker. And the first time ever that I've ever attended, maybe it's been different in your lifetimes, but first time I've attended, where the salutatorian and the valedictorian are both boys. And I say that because for the longest time, it must have been like, oh, I'm guessing here 12, 15 years in a row, when my daughter was in high school, it was always the girls that were salutatorian and valedictorian. And it's really just a breath of fresh air. And I don't mean any disrespect to the ladies, but because I always ask the boys when I coach them, okay, put your hand up, who's ever stupid here, more stupid than a girl? Needless to say, no one will raise their hands, right? And I'd say, well, wait a minute. Are you guys just telling me you guys are as smart as girls? Ah, coach, we're smarter. And I says, well, then why did I hardly ever have to check their grades when I coached the girls teams? And yet with you guys, I have to do it every week. Explain that to me. I'm not a very bright guy, but let's see. I hardly ever check the girls, and when I do, they're A's and B's. Check you guys, and some of you guys are not even making it. Where's the disconnect here? And maybe it's finally gotten through, and some of these kids are really focusing on their grades, which I think is a great thing that's happening within our community. I mean, I look at Mr. Negley there and I think, wow. I know I wasn't half as smart as he is, and to be at that age and think, wow, our future looks bright. It really does, and I'm so happy to see that. And like I said, the last time I was here, one young man of the group that we awarded actually got accepted to Caltech. And I don't know about you guys, but I've heard that that's almost, or it is as difficult as MIT. And we from Gonzales, little podunk Gonzales, is on the map because we got one kid that accepted. was accepted not only to the Caltech, but Stanford, that same young man. Oh, by the way, he was the valedictorian. And the best part of his speech was, like you said, brief and to the point, and that he was, right, Maria? Yeah, didn't even have to translate. I mean, he just boom, 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 let's get out of here. I do want to comment also about Lorraine. I did attend that, and I got to tell you, I have a whole new respect and education about our flag. I, as you know, am a naturalized U.S. citizen. And of course, when I was handing my little flag on the day of the ceremony, I was very proud of that. My dad was very old school and traditional, and he still felt that, you know, his flag was the flag. And I said, you know, well, sorry, Pops, I've accepted this country. This is my country. And, you know, you brought me here, and thank you, because I see that as a great opportunity for me to be whatever I choose to be and whatever I'm willing to work for it to be. Because that's the one thing that is definitely different than any other country. Here, you know, it all depends on your drive and your determination. I know of so many of my fellow immigrants that came here literally with pennies in their pocket, living in their cars, and now they're extremely successful business people. The guy that's my accountant, that's the way he came, and you know, he got his degree at Stanford. He's a heck of a CPA. I mean, literally, he's helped me triple my assets in the time that I've had him as a CPA. So I feel he obviously knows, and he has an immense love for the United States. As a matter of fact, he's the only public office or commercial office that I've gone to that proudly displays the U.S. flag right in front of his office. And I really appreciate that about him. Even disposing of the flag, I had no idea how that all transpired. And Mr. Guzman did, I think, an excellent job. And the video was, if you've never seen that video, it's well worth your time. It's probably what, 15, 20 minutes, but it went by like this. And I'm so glad I attended, but luckily Lorraine reminded me there was also the 50-50 draw. So I called home and said, dear, you got to get to the Catholic Church and get that stake. She did. Well, actually, Emily did. Yeah, no, actually, Emily did. Emily did, because she was, I haven't even showered. I'm like, okay. But somehow I got the steak dinner. Yeah, small town.
It helps.
It helps. One comment I have for staff, and again, I'm asking this because I've been asked not only by one, but about 4 different people. And it has to do with the planning department, and it's actually neither Tavin nor Alejandra. They think the world of you guys. They think that you guys are awesome and amazing. It's the plan check. And I am not sure why it's taken our plan checkers so long to finalize a set of plans. I've done enough construction in my days to understand that it's pretty basic stuff. You know where you need straps, you know you need sprinklers. It's given. I mean, architects are paid a pretty nice fee to design plans. Why it takes the folks that we are currently contracting so long to review a set of plans is beyond me. I don't get it. I don't get it. Is it the stamp on the plans from the architect? And I mean, I don't get it. And it's for little simple things. And I said, like I said, I've heard from at least 4 people that their plans are, they do what they're asked, they some resubmit, and they're told, no, you missed this and this and this. And like, then I would say if our firm that's checking that is missing that much stuff, then I'm sorry, we didn't move forward. Let's get it done. I mean, I don't want to be known as a community that nitpicks everything. And it should be, especially if we're paying a consulting firm. I mean, I would think that that's all they do all the time. Or are they doing a multitude of things, and plan checks are kind of like back here? I don't know. Maybe if you could research that, I'd appreciate it. It's not on part of your staff report. I do read those, but it doesn't say how many plans you have and how many are in plan check and how long it's taking to go from your plans, the plan check, to get them out to the public. That's something, in a statistic that I'd like to find out from you.
If there's specific ones too, we can look at the timeline where they're at in the process. So you can give me the names of those later. Are the 4-leaf consultants we contract with are very thorough. So that may be what is taking a while, but give me the names and
I will.
we'll look into them.
I will. I came in earlier today to talk to you, but you were out, so, I mean, I heard from one that it's taken them 2 years for a final plan check. I'm like, what? Yep, it's been taking 2 years. They take this and they're like, nope, nope, nope. need this.
I would also say it's more rare than not to have a perfect plan submittal that needs no changes. But, you know, we have people submitting plans that are from all different skill levels and.
Understood, I understand
All
that.
different skill levels, and sometimes there's iterations where someone asks for, you need to make adjustments to 7 of these things, and the plans come back with only 5 of them done. And so we have, I agree with Carmen, if we have some particular cases.
I will bring you those
I'd like to
particular
dive
cases.
in right there.
I've always asked, well, how long would it take you to comply or make these corrections that they ask you to correct?
Right.
Oh, well, yeah, so it's a challenge.
Yeah. All right, I have nothing more. Carmen, you're up.
Just a few things. So I too want to thank law enforcement, everybody that was involved in the event that transpired last Wednesday, and really appreciative of everybody that stepped in to help keep our community safe and the event contained. It was in my neighborhood, so I was very thankful that it was over quickly. So thank you to the sheriff's office, our police department, and everybody that helped apprehend those folks quickly. Also, just a reminder, June 29th is the cleanup day, the reuse, recycle, and cleanup day at Fairview Middle School, 8 till 1 o'clock. So please, spring cleaning is happened, hopefully, so you should have a bunch of stuff. If not, please clear out your old things that you don't need, and bring them to Fairview Middle School. And finally, again, 4th of July is right around the corner. So a reminder to register if you want to participate in the parade and 5K, et cetera, but also just a reminder to stay safe and do not use illegal fireworks. And we are, just so the council is aware, we are putting out as much information as possible about the illegal fireworks not being allowed in town, and that folks will be cited and prosecuted if they are caught or identified using them. And then lastly, Saturday, just it's been out on social media, and I know we went to a few different places to share about it. We are having in partnership with United Way, we are hosting a first-time home buyers / financial literacy workshop at the fair, at the Joint Use Gym from 9 to 12. Hopefully the presenter is feeling well enough to move forward with it. She was ill this last Saturday, so we had to reschedule the Spanish session, but we're hoping everything is good for the upcoming English session this Saturday. If not, just keep, be on the lookout on social media. We will let folks know in case we need to reschedule, but we're moving ahead as planned at this point.
And there's a limit, I believe, on it.
There is a limited space. Again, this is in partnership with United Way, and they usually only register about 30 individuals. So they are asking for pre-registration. If there is a lot of interest from the community, we can see to bring them back at a later date. And we will also be sharing a little bit of our Vista Lucia project and where we're at, just so people really understand the connection between starting to save and getting all their documents in order if they're ready and wanting to potentially purchase a home in the future. That's all I have.
Anything else from other member of staff? Everybody's good?
Yes, absolutely.
Mike?
Actually, I did want to say a couple of words just because we're not meeting before the 4th of July, but I did want to represent to you and to the rest of the community that the police department and the fire department plan to work in partnership on the 4th of July with the drones to observe illegal activity, identify where it's taking place, and also for purpose of fire suppression, dispensing and sending both fire and police personnel to areas where illegal fireworks are going off. We're doing this in the same manner that literally hundreds of other police departments throughout the state of California are doing and using drones for the same purpose. Some of the public speakers have raised the issue of folks having a expectation of privacy that is being violated by drone observation and so forth. That is true. There is a whole body of law that protects people from having unwarranted intrusions. However, there's a couple of exceptions to that. One is there's no expectation of privacy for illegal conduct. And I can't think of anything that would be more in your face than using illegal fireworks. You do it for the very purpose of having everybody, including your family members and your neighbors, observe the fact that you are blowing off the fireworks. So there's no expectation of privacy in the use of illegal fireworks. And secondly, there is an exception also in the law that has to do with the legitimate use of the drones for police purposes. And again, here the purpose is to maintain, oversee, and prevent any danger to both property and to life on the 4th of July through the illegal use of fireworks. So we feel very comfortable in having both the police and the fire department partner together to use the drone for those purposes on the 4th of July. You don't have to request permission from anybody to fly over the city and to observe illegal conduct taking place.
Thank you, Michael.
And if I could just spin off of that real quick, we, the police department, when we developed this drone program, we have multiple layers to protect the city of Gonzales, the police department, the drone pilot, myself, the public. We have a very thorough drone use policy that was crafted, put together. It was vetted. We're well within our legal rights when we use it, to use it under circumstances. There was mention earlier about wind speed. I think some people get confused with wind velocity versus wind speed and the safety concerns regarding that. I would suggest to go back and reread what they read and have a better understanding of that before they, start talking about facts when they don't know them. So I stand behind the drone program. I stand behind the drone pilot. We probably have one of the better crafted use policies for drone than anyone around. So we took those extra steps. So it's online. It's part of the military equipment policy that you adopted. It's right underneath that military equipment policy. It states drone policy. It's a separate document. It's included. It's online. Anyone go there and view it anytime they want to. It's multi pages long. There's some good reading if you want to take the time to sit there and read through it all. So.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. Well, I think we're aware and more educated on how to answer some of these questions. But anyway,
If you're interested, we can send it out to you guys tomorrow, just,
Yeah.
for-
We wouldn't have done this if we thought it was gonna be. That's sort of the way I look at it. Just trying to protect you,
Anything else for the good of the order?
So, yeah, just quickly, Mayor Rios, council members, I've been waiting a long time to say this. Construction of phase 1 of the community center started last Monday. The contractor is successfully grading, doing everything that we've wanted them to do for quite a while. So that's it, Mayor Rios.
Yeah, I've heard the hammer going on the sidewalks. Yeah. All right, then if nothing else, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So, second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Stand adjourned. Turn off your mics.